Now, remember where we left off before spring break was talking about strings. And declare a string is S, set it equal to happy, for example. Remember, when we're talking about happy, the indexing, that's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. This refers to the what this letter represents. This is our 0th position, 1st position, 2nd position, 3rd position, and 4th position. And even though we refer to it that way, remember our length is actually 5. So if you want to loop through it, you have to go from 0 to 1 less than your length. Now, we were talking about the index of last time. There's a last index of. This returns the last index of a specified character in a string. They got an example here. Ali Assad. And we're going to do a console write line. S dot last index of, and I think they're looking for an A. Let's see if that's a true statement. Yeah, looking for an A. So if I run that, it gives us 6. Where that comes from is, again, with what I just mentioned, our numbering scheme. This is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So the A it's finding is this last A right here, which is at position 6. Oftentimes you'll find a position of something so you can maybe insert something in at that place, maybe remove something at that place. Here's a remove feature. Return a new string by deleting all the characters from a specified index to the end. Now we may combine this with the one we just did. From the specified index to the end. So for here, the 3, Ali Assad, A is 0, 1, 2. The space there is our 3. So that should get rid of the space and the Assad at the end on that. So S dot remove, and what was it? 3. Remove 3. So now if I run that, you see it gets rid of the space Assad at the end. Like I said, you can combine that. So it isn't hard-coded to 3, but you're looking for where the last A is. Now this returns 6, so here I can put that in here. I could say S dot last index of A. And need another close parentheses there. And now if I run that, see how it got rid of the AD? Because again, that last index of gets the last A in my string, which is at position 6, and then the remove will remove everything from there then on. If for example, you know you don't want to discard anything in the string after a certain character, this is a good way to do that. If I had, for example, email addresses, like that right there. And I want to discard anything from the @ symbol on to the end. Then this is how you can do it. The last index of returns that position of it. Actually, since there's only one, you wouldn't have to even use the last. You could just do index of. Then the remove should get rid of that. So if I run that, you see we got David.Hayes. Now, the console.writeLine is not writing it to any string. That's just writing it to the screen. So it has not altered the string at all. If you wanted to alter the string, you would say, for example, s is equal to console.writeLine, then your s remove. So that would, now if I actually printed a string, so let's start with that debugging. You see we get our David.Hayes. You can do mixtures of these. We looked at index of, return the index number of the first occurrence of a specified character. So let's say I wanted to split that name apart. Let's say I knew all the email addresses were first name dot last name at cali.edu, and I want to split those apart. Well, at this point here, I've just gotten rid of the very end of it, so that's good. Now, I'm going to have an integer refer to the position of the position of the dot. The dot I'm referring to is this right here, this decimal. So David.Hayes. So to get the position of that, I'm going to say position of dot is equal to s dot index of, then my dot. Now, as you do work with strings, I'd recommend just print them off a little bit at a time, what you're working with. See if it's working. I think what it should return zero, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and the rest is going to be cut off. But I think it should return 5. But let's see if that's true. It does return 5. This is why it really does help me to put numbers underneath a string when I'm first working with it and starting to use all these functions, because then I can wrap my mind around, well, what is it finding exactly? And may not have got to that part yet. I forgot about everything over spring break. I didn't want to split. There's substring is what I'm wanting to show. So skipping ahead a little bit, substring returns a new string that contains character from a specified start index to a specified length of characters. For example, string text1 Ali Assad, and we would do substring, which is 2, 5. What that does is starts at position 2, remembering this starts at position 0, 1, 2, and then goes for a to a specified length of characters. So it returns 5 characters. Okay, so let's think about this. I want to return, I want to get David Hayes, or I want to return David. So f name is going to equal to s dot, and it's substring. Now our first name is starting always in position 0, so that's good. Now how many characters we want to go to? We said that the decimal was at position 5, which is actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 would return the first 5 characters. So since it starts at 0, then here we want to do comma and position of the dot. Well, let's print off that and see how it works. Console.writeLine. We're going to see a little easier way of doing this. I wanted to show the harder way first. Okay, so if position dot is, let's say 5, yeah. That's where I printed 6. Boy, my memory's bad. Let's see. No, printed 5. And see, I just returned David. Well, that's what we're wanting. Now, we're going to change the position of the dot here shortly, put a different name in there just to verify that. But let's talk about the last name. Last name equals s dot substring. And I want my beginning position. Well, if my dot is at 5, my beginning position would be 6 for the last name, which means I take my position of the dot plus 1, comma. Now, here's the part where I always have to really think it through. My length is 10 in this example. Because it goes from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's 10 total. My position dot is 5. So 10 minus 5 would give me 5. But Hayes only has 4 letters in it. So I think what I want to do is I want to subtract 1. So I want to do the length which is 10, minus the position of the dot, minus 1. And I think that'll give me the length of this last name.
Couldn't you also not just delete the @ symbol and go from the dot to the @ symbol and then delete the @ symbol?
You could. Definitely, because if you do that remove where it takes it from here and which function are you thinking about?
In order to get the last name, couldn't you go from the dot to the @ symbol if you didn't remove the @ symbol until later?
You definitely could. Yeah, because if you have that position of this, which would be 10, then 10 minus 5 would give you 5, and then so you still have to subtract 1. But yeah, that would work. So down here then, if I say s dot length, and so that'd be my 10 minus my position of my dot minus 1. And I think, but I don't always get these right the first time. I just have to tweak with them a little bit and change numbers here and there, and really writing these numbers down here. Just again, I can't emphasize that enough. And it gives me David Hayes. But let's try something more bizarre. Matthew Broderick. I think that was an actor. So now if I start that, then I see it works either way. So sometimes in programming, you have to figure out how to separate items. Now we're going to look at a lot easier way than that. You may be looking at this, boy, that's a hard way. Yeah, that is kind of a hard way. Before we look at the replace, let's go down to the split. Splits a string into an array of strings that are based on the characters that occur in a string. And this is what I was talking about. Got string, text 1, Ali Assad. It's separated by a space. And then you got string, and then the brackets here means an array. So it's a list of them. And called substring that does text1 dot split, and then whatever character you have right here. And then this down here is just printing them. So this would do the same thing. In our case, we'd want to split it apart with the dot. So, for example, let's see. I've destroyed S. So let me have S2 equal to S. So I have something to work with. And down here, we're going to be declaring an array of strings. That's what that's doing. Substrings equals S2 dot split. And I want to get rid of my add at the end. So like if I put that there, doesn't like something about that. Doesn't like the fact I said it's a string. Sometimes you can get away with that. Sometimes you can put a single quote. Sometimes you put a double quote. Sometimes you have to put a single quote. And that's what it was trying to tell me there. So then for each var item in substrings, what that's doing is for each means I'm looping through the array. I'm declaring a variable called item. It's generic, so that's why the var is there, in substring, and then we'll print out the item. Now, see, I have my Matthew here and Broderick at Cali.edu. This was telling you about. Oh, there's a dot on edu too. I didn't even see that. But this splits it up based upon the dot. So before I'd do this, I'd want to say S2 is equal to S2 dot remove, and S dot index of the @ symbol. Like I indicated, you don't have to use the last index of. You can just use index of, and that gets the The current position of that at removes from the at to the end. So now when I do this, I shouldn't see as bizarre as results. Or I should just get an error. Start index cannot be less than 0. Oh, S2. Try that again. Matthew Broderick, and it's working. What it was trying to tell me there is if it doesn't find something, then it'll return -1, I believe, for not found when you do your index of. Which means if I want to make this a little bit more robust, I'd have to put an if statement here, S2 index of at symbol is greater than -1. This will not try to remove it if the at symbol doesn't exist. So for example, if I come up here, that will probably break this up here if I had to guess. Because it'll try to remove at from -1 to the end. Let's try to see if that's true. Yeah, blows up there. So if I comment this out, now let's specifically looking to see how this code works. By the way, that -1 is kind of universal in a lot of different places. Since you can't have an index of -1, Matthew Broderick, you see I got rid of the at, and so let's put that up. This is especially useful. Combination of having an if statement there in your whatever you're wanting to do, split or remove or whatever. If you're working with something called CSV files. David Hayes 3,335, 713. Frank Hayes 7123. And I'll save this as under my documents. Now change the type to something called a CSV. Now there's a few CSVs. Here's Comma Delimited, Macintosh, MS-DOS. I'm going to choose this first one. And again, that's called Book 1. So I click Save. Some features. Do you want to keep using that format? Yes. Now I'm going to close that. And just to be on the safe side. And let's try it again. I swore my File Explorer was working for a while. If I right click on it and choose Pictures, I know it'll work. Okay, here's my book1.csv. If I right click on it and say Open With, then I can choose Notepad. We have this right here. So David Hayes, and got some kind of number here, and so forth. And you notice that since this is 3,335 and this is 712, the position of the commas in different places. This is where if you're wanting to separate something using a CSV, it's handy to have that capability. We haven't talked about files yet. We will shortly. If I come up here and replace my string with this, and let me get rid of a lot of this since I don't really need it anymore. That's going to split it up, but they're separated by commas now. So I put a comma there. Let's see, it should print each one of those separately now. So if I do a debug, start without debugging, you see how it puts each one of them on a separate line. Part of the problem is, though, is if I bring that up, and I say David, comma, instructor. So I put a comma right there. If I save this, I should still be in CSV format, I believe. Yep. Okay. Now if I close that, right click on that, open with Notepad. Notice I put quotes around it because I recognize I had a comma in there, which conflicts with a CSV, comma separated value format. If I bring that in, here it's got a couple issues. One of them has double quotes, which conflicts with this. No problem. We can put a single quote here and a single quote over here. And just as long as our delimiter doesn't match that, is that a true statement? Too many characters in character literal, so I can't have a single quote. Okay. Well, ignoring the fact that I have the quotes under them. Let's say I have a single quote around this. New line and a constant. There we go. So I put single quotes around this to indicate it's all together. So now if I ran this, well, unfortunately, it didn't recognize that comma was within these single quotes, and it split them up like this. That's not necessarily what we want. Oftentimes, they provide libraries for working with CSV, so it'll handle that automatically for you. You can program it, come from left-hand side, and anticipate anything in between those quotes is ignored. It's considered as a string. And that's a little bit harder. You can't do for the split like you see in here. I don't really know what the library is, if there is one for CSV in this. Let's see. I'm just curious. CSV parser. Um, I didn't want to write my parser. I wanted to use an existing one. So I can write my own. Here's a with CSV Barton Simmons.me. I wonder if that's good. Someday I'll get a bad virus for going to these sites. Okay. The simple approach and why it's so bad. Okay, that's just talking about what we use. Okay, CSV helper is a C# to handle install package. I didn't want to install anything either. It's GitHub. That's I believe it's something somebody's written put on GitHub. Using CSV system.csv io.csv. I don't think I'm having much luck there. But you can see it's a little bit of a challenge, and that's what we're talking about. Is you just can't use the split like you normally would. I probably would actually not write my own. I'd probably come out here and install that package and do that, or do one of the other options. Okay, so that's a split. Now here's a replace, returns a new string in which current specified characters are replaced with other specified characters. So we got our Ali Assad here, and looks like we're replacing Ali with Assad. String S equals to David dot Hayes, David pipe sign Hayes, pipe sign Cali, pipe sign edu. Now this replace here returns a new string which the currents of a specified character is replaced with other specified characters. So if I said S is equal to S dot replace, and our old character, see if it lets me put the two here. Replace that pipe symbol with a dot. Console.writeLine S. And replaced every one of them with a dot. So went through there and just replaced them all. I don't know if it has any other overloads on that. Let me see. Okay, it can be a character or a string value, it does. That's what replace does. Now, sometimes from a programming standpoint, not all packages handle CSV files appropriately. So I've had to at times, when I'm doing a CSV file, instead of it looking like this, they want the actual commas to be replaced with pipe symbols. That's a popular one because nobody uses a pipe symbol. Like this right here. The benefit of that is, since it's a comma-separated value format, meaning the fields are separated by commas, by putting pipe symbols in there, then this will not get messed up when you have a comma within a string like this. And as you saw earlier, we can easily split something apart based upon a symbol, like a pipe symbol. And if you want to keep those original commas there, you could do a replace, where you replace all the pipe symbols with a comma, when you're done splitting it apart. Although when split apart, you shouldn't have those anymore. But depending upon what you're doing. Starts with, returns true at the beginning of a string, starts with a specified character string. You see this starts with here. Substring we talked about. To character array. Returns a new character array that contains a character of a string. I don't think they got that worded very well. Let me show you what this does. I know what they're trying to say, but it doesn't flow real well. See, it's ALI. When they say returns a new character array that contains a character of a string, they mean it splits up that string into an array of characters. So each entry is one character. So that's what they're saying about that. Trim is quite useful. That gets rid of spaces at the beginning or end. You might say, well, what's the difference? It doesn't look the same. Well, if you're over in Excel, here's David. Here's David space space. Here's David space 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 space. They all look the same. And for some packages like Excel, it treats them as the same. You put spaces at the end does not make these different. For other programming languages, other programming constructs, having spaces there at the end will cause them to be different strings. So if I'm doing a search, let's say this is in SQL, and I'm trying to do a search on David. I was doing a select statement, select star from my table or whatever it's called, where F name equal David, like that right there. This would not find the other two. It just find this first one. So oftentimes when you're working with strings, you want to get rid of any spaces at the beginning or end. Now, it used to be that they had different functions for this, different methods. But it seems like they've kind of gone away from that, and I'm not really sure why. String s equals to space, 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 David, space, like that. And if I run that, see we got our spaces there. On the other hand, if I trim it, s is equal to s.trim. You see how it gets rid of the spaces at the beginning and end. Now C#, you may have noticed, when I do an s dot trim, I start typing trim, there's a trim end and trim start. What these will do is they'll get rid of spaces at the end or at the start. I'm glad to see C# has that on there. Some programming languages used to have this, and then they've gotten rid of them over time. Again, I'm not quite sure why. I guess they assume since if you want to trim spaces, you might as well do it beginning and end. But that's how you can clean those up. So if I want to get rid of the ones at the end, that gets rid of the ones at the end, but leaves the ones at the beginning. Used to be in Visual Basic, I think they're called R-trim and S-trim. And maybe I'm delusional, and I'm thinking some other language that's got rid of those. ToString we're seeing over and over. Let's see if the equals, how C# handles it. So string s2 equals David. Remember, this returns a true or false, so we're going to see if they're equal. So console.writeLine s.equals s2. False, they're not equal to each other. If, on the other hand, I do s is equal to s.trim, and now print the result, you see it changes it true. That's why some of these are important functions within programming, is because two of them that may look alike, when you print them, like these right here, if I were to print them, they both look the same. So if you're trying to debug a problem with that, then it's not so easy to see. Those spaces can cause you headaches. That's why when I did this, I did the earlier I did the asterisk. This here. Same thing down here. By putting the asterisk on there, I could tell where the string actually begins and where it actually ends. So then I could see that, oh no, this is David space. And I could see that they're different. Okay. ToString, like we've indicated, converts something to a string. That's already defined for us in Visual C Sharp, but they developed their own example here. There's a string format method. You see here, string.format name equals, and then beginning curly bracket, closing curly bracket 0, age is equal to this, name and age. What that's going to do is it's going to plug in name for the 0. It'll plug in age for the 1. So that's similar to what we've been seeing with the console.write line. So that's a string formatter is what allows us to do that. Its syntax is similar to console.writeLine method, but instead of writing it to a string, we're building a string we can then assign to the same string or to a different string. There's other format specifiers. There's C or C for currency, D or D for integer digit with optional negative sign. So these are all different ones. I don't remember them. I have to look them up when I work with them. Here we got 1921.39, and they want to do it currency. Currency means you put a dollar sign at the beginning, you have a comma, and then you always have 2 decimal places. That's what currency says. And so it gives you that format. Now this is doing a decimal price to string. Now we haven't worked with very much with that when we did the to string before. We just simply said to string. We wrote it back out to the screen. Let's actually create a Visual Studio GUI. So do a file, new project. And this is Windows Forms app, .NET Framework. And I'll have it's always weird when I go from one version to the other version, because I have to rearrange everything. Okay. Toolbox. Close Solution Explorer. I think I also want properties. I notice right here on this beginning screen, but I never can see it. There it is. Okay, so I'm going to drop a couple of text boxes on there. And we're going to have one of them as a dollar amount. One is like a %. And okay, there's common controls. Let's get everything back. Okay, so this first one be my dollar. Remember, if you go into common controls, it shows you the most common ones you'd want to use, so you're not scroll through all Windows forms. If I click the label one time, over here in properties, I can put the whatever I want it to say. I'll have it say dollar. This one I'll click, and I'll have it say tax percent. I'm going to have a button. And make everything a little bit bigger so I can actually see it. And the button I'll have it say calculate. And drop another label on there. Maybe. There it goes. And another text box. Maybe another label. This is where I put my answer. And what are these? These are font something 16. So I'm doing rectangular select. I'm clicking on my left mouse button and dragging, and there's a rectangle that goes around whatever. And once I select them, I can change your font. Okay, this I'm going to have it say for the text. Okay. The answer. This is going to be whatever I'm going to come up with. So I'll change the text of it to say 0 initially. Okay, so I'm going to bring in these two numbers. I'm going to convert them from string to double. I'll do my multiplication, then I'm writing back out to here. And I need some names. So this one here, I'm going to click. Remember, we go clear to the top. Under name, we'll call it TB underscore dollar. This one I'll call TB underscore tax rate. This one I'll call LB underscore answer. Okay, so double click calculate. Comes in here. We got double dollar tax rate percent answer. Dollar is equal to text box underscore dollar dot text. This is going to come in as a string. This is a double. Remember, we had to convert that. Double dot to or parse. Parse. This right here is a method, and this is a structure that's been set up. With this method, it's got overload, so different ways you can call it. So again, everything we've been doing before we switched over to the console was based upon what we've just covered in the console side. Tax rate percent is equal to double dot parse TB underscore tax rate dot text. You have to put the dot text on there. Otherwise, you're referring to the entire object, and it doesn't make any sense. So the answer is equal to dollar times tax rate %. That's assuming it's in decimal form. And now I write it back out. So I'll say LB underscore answer dot text is equal to answer dot toString. Now if we run that, put in 1,000 here, put in 0.05. The calculate gives us 50. Now the question I really wanted to answer here is I know we can do the toString, but let's see if there's any overloads with it. Dot toString. You see there's some overloads. I can choose this drop down. Format provider converts a numerical value of this instance to its equivalent string representation using the specified culture-specific format information. Converts a numeric value of this instance to its equivalent string representation using specified format, a numeric format string. Using the specified format and culture. Okay, sounds like the one we just looked at. Question becomes is if we can do this right here and put a C in there. That's the part I wanted to check while we're on that. And let's run that. And 500 and 0.01. Notice how I put the dollar sign on there, put the decimal, and put 2 decimal places no matter what. So again, those are format specifiers you can use. I really never have used those very much. I know they exist. I think there's even another way you can do those instead of putting the values there, but I'm not sure. Let's try this. See if it'll take that. Might be mixing this up with Excel. No, I guess again. Now what I did is I said, okay, before the decimal, I'm going to have four digits, no matter what. And so I put my 4 digits, and I think I put a zeros there because I did put a 0 here. And then down here, I said I'm going to have 3 digits after the decimal, no matter what. There's lots of variations you can do on these. And I don't know if I can actually remember them. Let's try that. .05. Okay, nothing exciting there. Notice how I have the pound signs there, but then I definitely have 2 zeros. That 2 zeros indicates I'm going to have 2 digits appear no matter what, and put a leading 0 in front of it. And what if you exceed 5? Let's see what it does. I think it'll still exceed it. I don't think that stops your formatting. Yeah, see how it still exceeds it? If you wanted something very specific, see if I come over here and go to, this is Excel, if I bring up a number, and I come down here to the, see if I remember where it's at. Just choose General up here. There's accounting, more number formats. Here's a custom. And you see here, you got you can put dollar or commas in there. Looks like. It's like over here. I can put a comma there. Now, if I start that, put 50.01. Notice that there's no comma. There is 2 zeros because I do have a 00 there. This would be where if you definitely wanted a 0 before the decimal, you could have 1 0 like that right there. So if I had $5, I'm taking the 1% of that, then I definitely have my 0 there. But it did not put that comma. If I keep increasing it, you will see the dollar appear, the comma to appear. I'm not a master at the formats on here. I just know that this isn't just specific to Excel. These are different ways you can set this up, and I don't know any way to make that bigger so you can see it. Lots of different things you can do. Red, indicate red if it's negative, I think. Scientific notation. I have no clue what those are going to do. I don't think you can probably use month and day on something that's not, maybe. Let's try that. Probably doesn't make any sense. Assuming it doesn't blow up. No, doesn't handle that. So it's specific to number formats. So the book here has a few that they illustrate, but there's a lot more you can do with it. And again, here's C for currency, D for integer digit format. D3, I'm assuming will be 3 digits will be displayed like 012. Big E for exponential format. That's your scientific notation. F for fixed float format. I'm assuming that always rounds to 2 decimal places for what the results are there. I've never used that. N, uppercase N, to put commas between them. What ones I have here probably don't give you as much flexibility as what Excel would give you if you go and look at those formats and apply those to your program. P is percentage. X is for hexadecimal. It's kind of nice. Convert your number to a hexadecimal format. Spacing is helpful to format the output. String can help to format the spacing. You see here you got name is 0, 10. Then you got your age, and then 1, 10. And then it passes in name and age. So this name here is passing in, right where this curly brackets is. But it's telling us that we're going to have 10 spaces here. The 0 just means our 0th parameter. The 1 here just means our first parameter. Again, the numbering starts at 0. So that way you can space them out. By default, strings are right aligned. To create a left line string, you need to use a negative sign. So a -5 defines a 5-character right aligned field. I don't think that's right. think they mean left align field. I think that's a little error. See how they put the -8 here? What that does is when it goes and plugs in name where that 0 is, the negative causes it to, well, it's 8 characters was the 8. The negative causes it to be over here. This first negative doesn't do anything, by the way. That's just a, doesn't serve any purpose. So yeah, they got a little bit of a error there. Now, one thing I looked up, let's see, is this right here. We're going to be checking our input within the GUI to see if they put a number in or not. For example, if I run what I have now, if I run this, the calculate, it blows up because I input, instead of a number, I input a string. What we want to check is see if they input any characters in. I did not know how to do this. I didn't remember. I'll forget it by tomorrow also. So I went and Googled it. I'm trying to find my original Google page. I typed in C# how to check if string contains letters. Stack Overflow is usually not a very good source to go with. That's usually people can't get the code to work. Well, I don't want advice from people who don't know how to get the code to work. And some people go out here and they answer these questions, and they have no clue what the answer is. It's just like they want to appear like they're helping, maybe, or I don't know. So oftentimes choosing a more reliable source like MSDN, Microsoft.com. MSDN is kind of a really good source to use. There's lots of other ones too. But when I found that, then it told me there was they told me that regular expressions existed. Well, sometimes people post stuff out here that's just unique to their machine, and I wasn't sure if that's correct or not. So I went and tried it. Took me 5 seconds to find that page, I think. Took me maybe another minute to check it. So they tell us to do using system.text.regularExpressions. So system.text. And sure enough, there was regular expressions. So now I brought in those libraries that I can use. Now I'm not going to parse and change it to a double right away. What I want to do is I want to put it someplace temporary. I'll create a string called temp. And I'll bring in my tb$.text. There's no way this will break. I think that's a true statement. It's bringing in a string so it can have weird characters, can have, whatever. And I can check now. They even gave me the exact example I wanted. Regex, regular expression, dot is match, and then your string, and then to see if it has A through Z in there. So, and that, by the way, that's going to return a Boolean, true or false. So I'm going to say if, and then I could say reg expression dot, what was it, is match. Put quotes in, or no, I want a string here. My string was temp, comma, my quotes, and A through Z, and then A through Z uppercase, because there are two different things. So if that returns true, that means I've entered a letter in there. So in that case, maybe I want to write back out to the TB dollar dot text. I want to say not a number. Else, then down here, I'm going to convert it. But I'm going to convert it from, I could convert it from there again, but since I already have a variable called temp, I think that'll reduce some of the overhead. Didn't like something there. Equals, not a number. Okay, so what this is going to do is comes down and takes my value from the TB underscore dollar, sets it to temp. And here I'm going to check to see if they entered A through Z lowercase or A through Z uppercase. And if it does match it, I want to write out to the text box, not a number. Otherwise, I want to do my conversion. Now here it implies that maybe use of unassigned local variable because I may not get down to that point. Well, you can handle this different ways. Right up here, you could set it equal to 0. That'd be one way. Or you can put that inside the if statement, the if else. Just to do it really fast, I'll put it up here. We'll be talking about more about the proper way to put our error checking in and so forth. So now if I put 800 or 300 and 0.08 here, click calculate, works fine. If I type David in here, click calculate. It says not a number, and it assumes 0 then, and 0 times 0.08 gives us 0. Now I've handled that. That does not crash ungracefully. I've handled that programmatically. Now, granted, I haven't put a lot of different items in here. If I put 1, 2, 3 at 5, 6 like that, 0.03, again it blows up. Now here it blows up nice, it gives us a nice message and so forth, and we can figure out what's going wrong with it, and fantastic. But if you have built the solution for this, you've delivered to your customer, they're sitting out on the production floor, they're sitting at their desk, scratching their head, wondering what in the world this error means. They're calling people up, trying to get somebody to help them fix it, when all they did was input a bad character. You probably won't be able to find that. They'll close it. Eventually they'll get hold of you and say, yeah, it blew up. It said something about not a number, or maybe not a number. Maybe it just says, what did it say? 2 at 3.03. Maybe they're a really good user. About 5% users do this. And they'd actually write down that error message. Most of them don't do that. They just call you up, say it didn't work. It blew up. It's like, well, what did it say? Oh, I don't know. It didn't work. I don't know how many times I've gotten that from people. They will not write down the error message. It's just like without the error message, even teaching online, all the different math systems I've had people work with, where it'll come up with some kind of weird condition. They won't write down what it says. I'd almost say that's probably 99% of people won't write it down. Well, it's time consuming. System.format exception, input string was not in the correct format. See that right there? If they wrote that down and told me that, that'd tell me, okay, input string is not in the correct format. Probably means they put a special character in there. You get this? They actually write that down. You want to go back to your program, you check to see if you've got any kind of check to see if they input a number in or not. Now maybe a better way to do this is I'm assuming regular expressions. Let me do 0 through 9. Maybe I check that, or maybe I could check all the oddball cases. Let me see. This returns true if there's any letters in there. So on the I mean, I could definitely start putting other items in here. Like if I put the at in there now. Does not blow up ungracefully. It says not a number. The regular expressions, you can put ranges here. Like that. Now the range is, I don't believe, is based upon like alphabetical. I could be wrong about that. I think it's based upon the ASCII chart. So if I go to the ASCII chart, I think when it's checking little a through little z, it's checking little a here through little z here. So if I want to check some of these other items, like colon, let's see if this is true, colon to the at symbol. So colon to that symbol. I might be wrong about this, so we'll see. I'm not great at regular expressions. I can fumble around with them and with some examples and get there eventually. Okay, that didn't, that seemed to work, but how about if I put a colon in there? Not a number. Okay, so it is based upon the ASCII chart, looks like. Which means that if I were to go through, I could put all these in here. I don't know how in the world you'd put these. Space, I'm not quite sure how you'd put that. If I did the exclamation through the slash. Which slash is it? That one. Okay, that one. And then if I did the colon through that, I did that. Those letters are covered. Bracket through that one. I bet bracket won't work since he's already in brackets. I'm almost sure it won't work. Let's try it. Of course, it won't work if I don't put the right bracket. There we go. Three comma 4.02. Not a number. 3 bracket 4. Not a number. So I'm guessing that I did that correctly. Although I missed these here at the end. So this would be a way I could go through using my regular expressions and make sure it's in the correct format. Regular expressions is much more powerful than what I've just been showing there. This is just some exclusions we can use. But you can tell specifically it has to all be numbers. We'll be looking at regular expressions more and also be looking at exception handling and see different ways of handling something come in that's not a number. Now, I was going to assign something on this, but I want to explore this a little bit more next time and with the error checking. And then I'm going to have you create a GUI this time. So we're switching back over to the GUI. We're working with strains and we're trying to make our program a little bit more robust so they won't crash on us. Is there any questions on any of that?
No.
Okay. Now, if you haven't seen regular expressions before, they're weird. It's almost Linux is where you really see them heavy, and they're just trying a very concise way to represent a series of characters. You can think of it that way. I'll go ahead and stop the recording.